So I'm Tim Gore, I'm from OXFAM, and I'm going to talk about climate finance in these talks, which was the critical issue for the poorest countries that came here to Doha. We've seen a climate finance drought in Doha. Poor countries arrived here facing a climate fiscal cliff. They did not know what was on the table to expect to support them to adapt to climate change and to change their economies onto low carbon paths in the years ahead. They didn't know whether climate finance would go down instead of up from next year. And what do they get at the end of this conference? They're left hanging by their fingertips from that cliff. They really don't know what to expect in the next years. We saw one or two European countries, and we commend them for this, that came forward, the UK and Germany in particular, and they said we will increase our public finance to help poor countries adapt to climate change, to change their economies in the next years. But the rest of the countries, they either gave vague reassurances that their climate finance would continue, which means nothing, doesn't tell us whether it goes up nor down. And some countries, like the US, like Japan, they said nothing at all. They were silent. And it is a betrayal. It's a betrayal of the commitments they made in Copenhagen to stand with the poorest countries, to recognize that they as rich countries have caused this crisis. It's their emissions that are impacting on the poorest communities around the world, that are hitting crops, hitting harvests, meaning that more people go to bed hungry every night. And the decisions here in Doha have made it harder for families to put food on the tables of their children. That's the cruel reality. Now, what do we need to do after this? What can we do? Kumi's talked about the need to build a movement, and he's absolutely right. And I think all of the organizations that have come here to these talks recognize that we do not continue to just turn up year on year at these same talks to watch the same old story. We need to write a new story. That's our jobs. We're going to get out there. We're going to build a new movement, a movement that can compare to the movement that overcame apartheid, that overcame slavery, that overcomes all sorts of struggles all around the world for a more equitable future. That's our challenge. We're not going to accept this because the clock is ticking, people are suffering, and we don't need to put up with this. So I agree fully with what Kumi, my colleagues, have said. We don't have to accept this deal. We reject what the leaders have put forwards. We'll stand for a more equitable outcome. We'll stand with young people who face growing inequality, growing unemployment. We'll stand with the religious leaders of the world that know what is the right course. We'll stand with our trade union comrades, and we will make a change, because this is where we draw the line in the sand. So after Doha, there will be no more of these anti-COPs, where leaders turn up, they talk, they wait for hours. We've been waiting for 12 hours today, and for what? For an agreement that does nothing for the poorest communities on the planet. So this is where we draw the line in the sand, and this is where we leave here more angry, more impassioned, and more determined than ever to defeat this crisis. Thank you.